This episode is brought to you by Loot Crate, the monthly subscription box for geeks, gamers, and pop culture nerds. We want to believe, with the revival of the X-Files that we've all been waiting for, there's never been a better time for an invasion. An alien invasion, that is. Packed with the thrill of an extraterrestrial encounter, this month's Loot Crate features exclusive items from the X-Files, Alien, The Fifth Element, and Space Invaders, plus some classic sci-fi goodies. We can tell you this, the loot is out there. You only have until the 19th at 9 p.m. Pacific to subscribe and receive that month's crate. And when the cutoff happens, that's it. It's over, Jack. So go to lootcrate.com/KFGames and enter code KFGames to save $3 on your new subscription today. Top 2.
Sorry.
Colin.
Yeah.
What are your top 10 favorite games in 2015?
Well, I have my 10, but then I also have 8 honorable mentions.
Fuck you. You can do 2 honorable mentions.
No, I'm doing all of them. But
Tim, you're the host. Do something about this.
I bet you my list goes just as quick. I want to mention these games. I'm going to do it quick. My honorable mentions for different reasons that didn't make my list. I want to give a shout out to Bloodborne. Played Bloodborne for about 20 hours, maybe a little bit more at the beginning of the year. I was interrupted by some travel. It's one of those games that I've said before that I can't stop playing and then get back into it, and I would have to start again. But I really enjoyed my time with it, and it was the first time I really got a Souls game, and I'd played Demon Souls and especially Dark Souls pretty extensively. I will say, as one of the kind of negative caveats of Bloodborne, is that it has a lot of great fans. It also has a very cringeworthy fan base, a hardcore fan base that needs to kind of get over itself, parts of it, with the way they talk about the game and how like you're an idiot if you don't like it or you're an idiot if you don't play it and stuff like that. Like they really need to like kind of chill on that. I think overall, From did a really nice job with the game. It was the first time I really got a Souls game, and I really do. It's really one of those games that I want to get back to. I think it's really, really fun.
But do you think you ever will?
I think I probably will.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those games that it probably will. Fallout 4, I want to give a shout out to. I was disappointed in it, just in the sense that I wanted that Fallout 3 feeling again. I think that might have been an unfair way for me to go in and play it. I played it for about 25 hours. I don't know that I'll ever get back to it anytime soon, but I'd like to maybe when the DLC comes out. I think that Fallout 4 is just more Fallout 3, and I wanted something a little different. That's why that's why I wasn't really into it, and why I think that is a game that I'll get back to, but maybe my expectations were too high for. Heroes of Loot, I think, is the most casual fan base, casual game that I played all year. It's actually an iOS port. I played it on Vita, and I really only played it for like 2 days on my Vita, but it's just one of those games. I was going through my trophies, and I was just like, I really liked this game. It's really quite
Addicting?
Yeah, just for a little bit. It's simple. Mm-hmm. It's kind of silly. It's very, I don't know. I just wanted to give it a shout. iDarb on Xbox One. We played that game quite a bit and on Xbox One, and I really quite enjoyed that game. I think that game's fun as hell. I was also strangely good at it, which made me feel pretty nice.
iDarb got the cut from my list. It was there, and then I moved it out for something else, but...
Well, if you would have done 19 honorable mentions, you probably could have fit it into.
Mario Maker, I wanted to give a shout out to, just because I would never mess with the tools, but especially during our 24-hour live stream for the Big Beautiful Kids that we did in October or November, I just was quite enamored by it. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's a game that has legs. I think they'd be smart to bring it to NX. I think they probably will. And
X is going to give it to you.
It's just, I would love to see other companies learn from this. I think Nintendo can learn from it too, in the sense that we could get a Zelda Maker, we could get all of these other games, and I would love to see a Zelda Maker in the spirit of the 90s RPG Maker or Fighter Maker or whatever, where it's like you can really get kind of down and dirty with it. But a Mega Man Maker, a Castlevania Maker, some of these, Sonic Maker, if you're into that kind of stuff like that, there was something really cool about it. Project Root, I wanted to give a shout out to. I don't quite know why I like this game, because I don't think that it doesn't have the finest production values. It's not the thing that stands out the most, but similar to Jamestown Plus, which was another game I really kind of fell in love with this year, for weird reasons. It's just an old school arcade shooter, and it just feels good to play those games. And when I was playing it, I was like, I don't quite know why I like this, but I played it all the way through anyway. Super Stardust Delta, I want to give a shout out to, because it's just more Stardust, and I think that's fantastic. And Wolfenstein, The Old Blood is another game I want to give a shout out to before I give my get into the top 10. The only reason that I didn't put it on my list is because I didn't beat it. I don't know how it ends. But man, I love what Machine Games has done with that series. And I've actually I restarted it recently, and I've just been playing it again. It's just fucking really fun. It's just a fun game. All right. Top 10. See how quickly I got through that? I got through all of that.
It doesn't matter how quickly. I don't care about the time. I care about you diluting the list to not meaning anything. You just gave me your top 18 games of the year.
I didn't. I told you I
will, though, combined.
Okay. Number one, predictably, Dying Light. And we're going in alphabetical order. I think that I've said everything I need to say about Dying Light. I think people know ad nauseum how I feel about the game. It's not a game I beat, but it's a game I spent a lot of time with because I was just kind of there was a few weeks where I was really obsessed with it. Played it a lot. Just really went down the rabbit hole. Explored. Took my time. Did side quests. Tried different things in combat. Tried to make new weapons. I think that it's just a really good game, and I'm really happy for them over there at Techland, that they moved on to something that was dangerous and probably felt a little weird for them, even though it's another zombie game. But everything really kind of came together for it. And I just think I don't want to say it's criminally underplayed because it sold millions and millions of copies. So I think people played it. But I think that because of when it came out and the games that people really enjoyed since then, like Metal Gear, for instance, I think that people have forgotten that it was really good. I think it would have been cannibalized if it came out in the fall. Maybe we wouldn't feel the same way about it, but I think it was the first punch in the face this year, and I really enjoyed it a lot. Mad Max is number 2. You guys didn't play it, so I won't talk too much about it. And again, this is a game I kind of talked about quite a bit, but I think Mad Max showed what an open world can be when it's depopulated and empty. And I know that that's a weird thing. We talk about dense games and Fallout or The Witcher, where these games have a lot in them and a lot of life and a lot of boisterous characters and things to do in them. Mad Max has a lot of things to do in them, but there's no one in the world, and there's just remnants of what was in the world. It's eerie to go through a desert that was once an ocean with ships just abandoned in it, and going through the ships and finding old pictures of people's lives before the fall of man, and turning it around and reading little things, notes people, and how one of the things in terms of storytelling that I thought Mad Max did really well was it really showed the decay of humanity in that in-between period through the notes and the pictures that you found. So there's a real world, and when everything's normal like it is now for us today, and then there's the decrepit Mad Max world that we know after really the first movie, and they show the time in the first few years of when people are really starting to lose their shit, and people are kind of still holding on to why things were so good, but how they can't be good anymore, and just slowly coming to terms with the fact that they're out of food, or they're out of fuel, or they can't move, or their kids are being kidnapped, or whatever. I don't weird things like that, where it's there's people are in danger and all this kind of stuff. And I think that Avalanche deserves a lot of credit for that game. I think that game is underrated. I understand that the hand-to-hand combat is not really people's bag. I always talk about how Batman Arkham Knight's combat is really boring to me and kind of one-dimensional and shallow, and I really feel that way. Mad Max is even worse because it's predicated on the same thing, but I do say that car combat is really special. Number 3, Mega Man Legacy Collection. This is just a very thoughtful grouping of games, of great games. I think that all 6 of those games, especially I would say 2 through 6, are maybe superior to almost everything I've had on my list. But these are games we've played before, and we talk a lot about should games stay the same or should they change. Assassin's Creed, for instance, is an example of a game that has changed mildly, but it stayed the same. We don't quite understand why they haven't fixed the gameplay. Maybe some people feel that way with franchise fatigue. But there's times when I think a game nails the way it feels and the way it plays. And that's why you had these games in 6 years, just one after the other. They're easier to make than the games today too, of course. But they're always going to be timeless, and they're always going to be good. And I like how they ported these over with the care enough to basically make an emulation of the games, or an emulator that plays the games as they were. So they're not ports of games. They're not cleaned up. The slowdown's still there. The flicker's still there. A lot of problems, technical problems that are still in the originals. They tossed in
the challenge mode and stuff, right? Made it a little bit different.
Yeah, and then there's the challenge mode, which I think is quite cool and really fucking hard. I think it really destroyed people. You look at the trophy list for it. A lot of people don't have those trophies. So yeah, the challenge mode was cool, and basically they just figured out a way to write code in the emulator to just pick out parts of games and string them together, so you can play Stone Man stage for a little while in Mega Man 5, and then you get transported back to Elect Man stage in Mega Man 1, then you're fighting Quick Man for Mega Man 2, and all these kinds of things. It's really quite ingenious. I think that collection was good. I think it was affordable. It would have been cool to get 7, 8, 9, and 10, but due to the nature of the way that they were porting the games, that's not possible.
The presentation was on point, for sure. Everything about it. I think I like that you had the options of the borders, shutting them on and off, and simple things, but it's that's the type of thought that needs to be put into these collections when you're putting a game out for the millionth time,
Agreed. Rocket League is next. Rocket League is borderline my game of the year. I'm not quite sure what I would, because we're listing them in alphabetical order, and I guess we'll figure out like how we choose a game of the year if we will do that, because we're not beholden to the old media style of these are our nominees and these are our. I don't want to fucking do that. It's boring. But Rocket League, I think, comes closest to what I was looking for in terms of a new and different kind of experience, because I didn't really play the original game on PS3. And Rocket League was another one of those games similar to Shovel Knight where I was positive this game was going to be huge. Like the first time I saw it, I was positive. And I remember talking to Greg about it, and I was like, this game's going to be gigantic. And it was, because it's just fucking fun. And it runs well, and it's got workable online, which I played quite a bit. It's got its own single player season mode to keep you kind of engaged if you want to play by yourself against varying strengths of AI. A lot of unlockables and a nice loop there in terms of just unlocking things, and things unlock randomly, so you can't really kind of gauge what you're going to get next, which I think is fun. Everyone wanted that Team Fat flag. I remember when Rocket League came out, because our Team Fat is in it, and people are like, how do I unlock the Team Fat flag? I'm like, you're going to unlock it first, you're going to unlock it last, like or anywhere in between. But I think Rocket League is just a rock solid game, and I think they deserve at Psygnosis, or Psyonix rather, not Psygnosis. Psygnosis doesn't exist anymore. Psyonix.
They came back from the dead to make this one game.
They deserve an incredible amount of credit for making a fun, dynamic game, basically on the side while they were doing contract work for games like Mass Effect. And I was so happy to hear that they spent about $2 million making it, and they made $50 million. So good for them.
I mean, they did it, man. I think that's the thing, is the fact that everyone is playing that game and still is.
Yeah.
And it's just like, again, going back to the Twitter thing, because that's kind of like what really matters. It's like we talk about all these blockbuster games, but what are people talking about? What are people going back to? And similar to Mario Maker, I think Rocket League's one of those things where it got its claws into people and it's not leaving.
Sure.
Like that's a Smash Bros. Style game, where it's just people are just going to play forever.
Next on my list, and we have different rule sets, which is fine. I'm counting Shovel Knight because I think it's most at home on Vita, and that's where I played it. I platinumed it. I beat the game a lot on Wii U and 3DS and PC. Not so much on 3DS, but on Wii U and PC. We got it early this year. It's still a masterclass in gaming. Yacht Club knows exactly what they're doing. I won't belabor the point on that game anymore because we talked a little bit about it already. But it is right at home on Vita. That is where the game belongs.
That's where I beat it.
And it's just so good. The Witcher 3 on my list.
Interesting.
This is a game that
you talked shit about nonstop.
Yeah, man, and I still think that it's too dense. I don't think it's this masterpiece at all. But I do think it's great. And I think that this was the game I played the most this year by far. I played it for about 60 or 70 hours, which would have been enough time to have beaten even most open world RPGs, maybe even twice. And I want to give it credit for a few reasons. This was a game that I had to reflect a lot on, and we did, and I had time to think about it over the months since it's come out, 6 months or so since I even played it. And that's not quite true, maybe 4 or 5 months. But it's one of those games that, similar to Dying Light, as we talked about with Techland, the studio delivered a game that I don't think we thought they were capable of. And it's a game that has a lot of love and thought put into it. It's beautiful. It's thoughtful. It's got some good voice acting, and I don't know. I think that the gameplay maybe left a little bit to be desired for me. I think that there's way too much shit in the game. For a player like me, I just can't ignore that stuff. I feel like I'm not getting the full experience. I feel like I know a lot of people like to just run through and do the main quest in a lot of those games. I just can't play games like that. It's just not the way I play, which is why sometimes I desire a more linear experience. But I think that Witcher 3 deserves credit. Not my game of the year, but certainly one of the better games I played this year, and really excited to see what they do with their next game, and Witcher will continue as well in the future. So interested to see what they do there. Maybe another candidate for my favorite experience of the year is 3/4 Home. I played it on Vita. It's also available on PC and PS4 and other platforms. Similar to Journey, it was one of those games I will never play again. There's no reason to play it again, and it was an emotional, I don't know, an emotional experience. It was a kind of a gut punch for me in some ways. I don't want to ruin the story too much, but it's about a girl, late teens, early 20s, and her relationship really with her family, experienced largely through a telephone call she has with her family while she's driving, and it just hit home for me. I really loved it. I really, really loved it. I was so glad that I played it. It wasn't a game that I was excited about, and I remember we did a Let's Play for it, and we kind of experienced that. I was like, all right, I've seen enough. But I really went back and played it again, and I think that it's worth, like, on a quiet Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, whatever, day, night, what you want. Like, it's a game, just download and play it. Just give it like an hour or two and just play it. And I really think you'll like it.
My question for you about it is when you beat Journey, you walked away from Journey and never touched it again. When you beat 3/4 Home, did you go back and get the rest of the trophies?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, me too.
Because most of them came like in some sort of prologue system.
And it was super easy, to jump around and get. Yeah, I know.
Which is and what was interesting was that playing those scenes at the bus stop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a separate part of the game, really expanded the story and actually made it even more sad.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I recommend 3/4 Home. You should check that game out. Uncharted: The Nathan Drake Collection. I include on here. Just really 3 fantastic games. I think 3 is better than 2. I know that's a minority opinion, but
not here at this table.
I mean, it's still a minority.
But
wait, no,
that's not how it works. Actually, no. When there's more than one, that's the majority. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be mean.
No, it's okay.
So I think that what can we say about Uncharted that hasn't already been said? These games are fantastic. They must be played. And some people have problems with the finicky kind of controls if you're not used to the kind of third-person shooters. And I understand that they're better third-person shooters. There are third-person shooters that I like more on a gameplay level for sure. I think Vanquish is one of my favorites, for instance, or Gears. But storytelling-wise, pacing, set pieces, twists and turns and weirdness, that kind of Indiana Jones feel. I don't know. You don't really get much better than Uncharted. And that really made me excited for Uncharted 4. And I platinumed 1 and 2 again. So I have 5 Uncharted platinums now.
Very nice.
Until Dawn. I would say biggest surprise, but we kind of knew it was going to be good. I think
but it
for
built
a while.
slowly. And that was the thing. Yeah, we had rumblings and all this different stuff. But it was that when we first saw that game, it was a move title. And we're like, okay. And then when it resurfaced, like, that seems cool. And then we played it. And we did that Let's Play on that preview build. And it was like, frame rate's kind of weird, and then they fixed that even.
Yeah. I think Until Dawn is a phenomenal game. I would call it the best exclusive on PS4 this year, and not that there's like much competition in terms of volume. But it is a better Quantic Dream game than Quantic Dream really made, which I think is interesting. And I think that it's a game, it's proof that it gives me hope for The Last Guardian in weird ways, because it's proof that a game can exist for a long time and even be reworked and remade completely, which Until Dawn was, and be really good. Usually when a game is in development for a long time, it could like with Final Fantasy 15, it could be bad. Yeah. Not that I'm saying Final Fantasy 15 is going to be bad. As I said before, I have no doubt that it's going to be at least good.
2015, it's happening.
I hope so. Just for everyone's sake, so I can stop hearing about it. But for me, it was an example of, like, we saw this game years ago at Comic-Con. I want to say 4 or 5 years ago now, running PlayStation Move game, and it was radically different from what we ended up with. And I like that they were smart enough at Sony, Shuhei and those guys, to kind of be like, let's move this PS4, let's get rid of the motion controls, and like let's really dig down on why this game's special. I was surprised that they didn't advertise it more. That was a huge problem for me in terms of, like, I don't think they quite understood what they had. I think that they felt burned by the Order 1886, and I think that which was not a good game at all. And I think that they kind of conflated the way people would feel about both these games being kind of second party exclusives. But I think that they added gold with Until Dawn. I think that they kind of gave it short shrift. I think they probably should have released it closer to Halloween, or at least given it another push. So, it's a fantastic game. It's one I recommend. I think it's a fun party game. It's fun to play with people.
Definitely.
It's fun. There's replay value there. And I agree with what you were saying about it before, in the sense that this is obviously going to be an IP. They're going to make a sequel. I don't think there's any chance of the sequel including the same characters, the same story. I just think that they can make this game every other year.
They've already announced it. Until Dawn. Rush of Blood.
Yeah, Rush of Blood, which is a VR
which
game.
honestly, like, it's not what we want. That's a fun game. I don't know if you guys.
I haven't played it. I haven't played
entirely.
it.
Yes, it's very, very, very fun.
No one asked you.
Out of all the VR games that I've played, it's the most gamey. And it's cool.
Okay.
It reminds me of arcade games.
Does it remind you of that thing you guys do at Disneyland when you go in the Andy's thing and you're like, pop, 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 pop?
Yeah, like Buzz Lightyear and stuff?
Yeah.
Definitely.
And
pop, pop.
So Until Dawn, I mean, you guys know what it's all about. I think that, I think it's a game for many different people. I think it's a game casual gamers can play. I think it's a hardcore
100%.
gamers game. I think there's no fail state, much like a Quantic Dream game like Heavy Rain, and the game just keeps going. So you can theoretically not really do anything in it at all except for move your character and kind of go from point A to point B. But I thought the writing was really clever. I think that the writing was really lost on some people. I think that people are like, well, it's weird and it's bad. I'm like, dude, it's supposed to be a fucking teen horror movie. And I know that some people looked at that as being like, well, that's a cop-out because that protects them from any legitimate sorts of debate about if the writing's good or you know, things of this nature. And I'm like, let's not think about it too deeply.
I mean, no, but even more than that, though, is like, it's just because something isn't great doesn't mean that it's easy to make something not great. Like, well, then that's the goal. You needs to be good writing to make something that hits that tone. You know, like a 90s horror movie, like a lot of the twists that happen on Until Dawn, they're bad. But that's the point.
Yeah, that is the
know?
point. And I get that it protects them from you know, controversy in terms of like, well, this is bad. And I'm like, well, it's not supposed to be serious. You know, it's a fucking teen horror movie. It's a slasher film. It's stupid. But that was why it was fun. It doesn't, since it's so easy to compare both in the ecosystem and from developers with Supermassive and then Quantic Dream, and I've made this comparison multiple times already today. There's something to be said about Heavy Rain's a great game. It's one of my favorite games on PS3. I think that Beyond Two Souls, it was a failure largely. I think it made no sense. And I think that it was just, I have no idea why it was out of order, and which they acknowledged themselves when they let you put it in order on PS4, which I thought was funny as hell because I was like, that was obviously one of the weird things about that game that a lot of people complain about. But when you have an air of pretension about your games like they do, and you have a pretension about the way you do games, whether it's good or bad, because I actually really like David Cage, but there's a pretension about the way we deliver these games, the experience and the art or whatever. Well, I think people nail your game a little harder, and I think the way Supermassive talked about Until Dawn and kind of just when they showed it at PSX for the first time playable, and people were in the crowd were really into it. I think that showed like how you might want to treat games like this, and I'll be really interested to see with Detroit, which is Quantic Dream's next game, the PS4 exclusive, what they've learned, because if they're smart, and they should look at Until Dawn as a game they can learn a great deal from, because they are no longer the leading pioneers of that kind of game. And that's so I don't know if Greg agrees, but that surprised me. It was they are no longer untouchable in that sense, and they are certainly not delivering the best of 100%. The best.
You figure they stumbled with Beyond Two Souls, regardless if you think it was good or bad. You know what I mean? Like, I think that it was a mixed reaction, whereas Heavy Rain was pretty much universally praised and was like their real breakout hit, right? I mean, they had done games before then that people loved, but not on that scale, I don't think. And so, yeah, they were weak for a moment there, and then you did have Until Dawn come in, but Until Dawn and these guys could easily be what Quantic Dream was with Heavy Rain, right? Screw up the next one, do this. It will be interesting to see with Detroit how much they've learned and what they come out and how they message the game and do different things with it.
And the final game on my list is Zod Drifter, which I played on Vita, but you can play it on Nintendo platforms. I think it's on PC. I think it's also on PS4. Zod Drifter is like a bite-sized. What I thought was clever about it was it's a bite-sized Metroidvania game. You can beat it in like under an hour if you wanted to. But you can spend a few hours with it if you really need to. It's basically 4 kind of disparate planets. It is a Renegade Kid game, so it is very pixelated and very stylized. And you basically just jump from place to place and get new abilities that then let you go back to other planets and get further and further into the stages until you beat fight the final boss and beat the game. It's a lot of palette swapping with enemies and even bosses. It is not a huge game by any stretch of the imagination, but I kind of lost myself to it when I played it and really enjoyed it. It's funny because it was one of the first games we played when we actually broke off in January, and then I played it on Steam and I'm like, I don't really get it. It's a game you have to kind of think about a little bit, but once you get it, I came into Vita later and I played it again and I really enjoyed it. And I highly recommend it. It's Zeo with an X, Xeo Drifter, and I really enjoyed that game. So I think that people will like that. If you're looking, it's not like Symphony of the Night or Shadow Complex. It's maybe more akin to Shadow Complex because you can beat that game quickly too, but it's not like the Strider remake or Symphony of the Night or any of those kinds of games where it's going to take you 10, 15, 20, 25 hours to beat. Like, there's no way it takes you more than a few hours, unless you're just terrible at it. So I would go down that direction. Zeo Drifter is my final game of the year for 2015.
Awesome. Greg.
Hey, how are you?
Top 10 favorite games of 2015.
Do we want to check in?
We do want to check in.
On patreon.com/kindafunny.
How things going?
Nick is updating. He's holding his hand up. $80 away from $45,000, which would guarantee us
6 episodes.
Correct.
Half the season.
Right.
I'm kind of funny, the animated season.
We're within striking distance of waxing a part of Greg's body.
Yeah. So if we get to, what is it, 46?
Yeah, 46.
If we get to 46,000, we're going to wax Greg.
Part of me.
Part of Greg.
Okay.
Yeah. Not all of you.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure.
Well, your nimbly bits will be
Spill.
okay.
Okay, good.
Leaving
I didn't
those
know where
alone.
you're waxing, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
where
I'm
we're
not
going.
sure either. We'll
Okay.
figure it out. I'm not
Remember-
sure it's going to be me either.
If you're watching this in January, please go to patreon.com/kindafunny. Donate there. All the money we raise in January on patreon.com/kindafunny goes to making the animated series a reality. Right now, we're in the middle of live streaming.
Yes.
We're recording this, keeping it very profesh, but we're also streaming it on Twitch, where we're asking people not to sub to us or donate to us there. Go to patreon.com/kindafunny. Give us your money there.
Lovely.
Let it roll till February.